If you're watching this video, you're probably looking at getting a penetration test. You want a level of confidence in what you're doing, and you want a level of confidence in what we're doing. I'm Tab Pierce, founder of Caliber Security Partners. We've been doing this for 12 years. I've been doing it for 20 years.
I'm Rex Warren. I've been doing these tests for at least 20 years, and today we're going to talk about what not to do and what to do during a pen test.
We've been doing this for years. We've done hundreds of these tests. And Rex, there's got to be ways that people can show up better prepared for a penetration test.
That's right, Tab. And generally, it's not to our benefit that you're better prepared. It's for your own benefit. You get a better pen test out of it, and you get better work out of the testers. So one of the main things you could do to help yourself in the pen test is to really understand what your scope needs to be during the pen test. And that can be defined by a lot of different things, whether or not you're doing this for compliance or whether you're doing it for your best practice on a product or any other reasons. Understanding those reasons of why you have to do this pen test will help you guide and give you a better scope. So for compliance, your business relies on a specific rules that you have to run by, whether it's the payment card industry, you take credit cards, or maybe you're FedRAMP and you have to abide by federal rules. Maybe it's SOC or HIPAA or any of those kinds of things where you have to show an external body, auditing body, that you've done your due diligence in keeping your products safe.
Okay, Rex, so you talk about a penetration test based upon compliance. And that does matter to us when we start to do a scope. But there are times when people are doing it for compliance and for security best practices, correct?
Correct. And those are some of the better engagements that we have, because people are more interested in not just meeting the checkbox of a pen test, but also getting the best out of their product and out of their services.
And it's interesting because we ask that question, why are you doing this? What's the driver behind this? And when we hear things like compliance, do we treat that differently than we do if what we hear is best practice in any way?
Typically, yes, because compliance is going to be more specified on what needs to be tested and when it needs to be tested. Best practice might be more along the lines of I'm not comfortable understanding where I feel in the security of this aspect, and I need to understand that better.
All right, Rex, so we talk about penetration testing for compliance reasons or for security best practices. What type of pen tests are out there for people?
Well, typically our service line covers quite a broad set of penetration tests. So we do network, both external, internal, applications, both web applications, or might be a thick application that runs on a desktop, or might be a mobile application, maybe even an IoT. And a lot of times we're going to be testing not just the applications, but the services in the back end that give you the end-to-end customer experience.
So Rex, what are some of the questions that you might ask during a scoping call?
So typically the questions we'll ask during a scoping call are going to be related to what services we're offering. If we're doing a network pen test, we're going to want to know the number of IPs that we're testing. If we're doing an application, we're going to want to know the size of the application, how much is involved, are there pages, are there editing pages, how does data get in and out, and things like that. It's a mobile application, very similar. We're going to want to know what your backends are as far as services that are being offered, as well as what the front end application is being made from.
So is there anything that somebody could go into a scoping call better prepared for that call? I mean, you mentioned IP addresses, so that might be one of them, but are there other things?
Yeah, typically what we find, I guess the hardest question to answer from somebody, from some of our clients, is how big is their application, right? So typically I like to gauge them as maybe three different types of applications. There might be one an information only type of application. Doesn't require a login, just contains information. There might be then, the next step might be requires a login, or maybe a user is allowed to create their own user case and then do a shopping cart. Those are typically the next level of application size, right? And then you might get into a very large application where you've got content creation, you've got that going on, so you've got all kinds of ways that users can input data and manipulate the system to where all of these cases have to be fleshed out for attack scenarios.
Okay, so Rex, so let's just assume that, we've sent a scope out, client accepts the scope, we sign it, and we're ready to start. We're in the kickoff. What are some of the things that can help you and your team so that kickoff goes smoothly and we don't have delays?
Well, typically we'll try and get ahead of the kickoff call even with what we need from the client. And typically those needs are going to be, what is the range of the IPs that we're testing? What is the application? What is the URL of the application? Where can I get the mobile application? Do I need to download it from the Apple Store or from the Android Store? Typical questions like that, along with credentials that we may need for application testing so we can mimic a user. All of those things gotten ahead of time before the kickoff, the actual project kickoff, are essential to having a smooth flowing engagement.
Yeah, and often that kickoff call, if those things are done properly, it goes really quickly, right? What are some of the things, if there's maybe one or two things that is common that just stalls the start of a project? Are there any of those?
Yeah, typically someone a client will ask us for a fast engagement time, and they'll think they're ready, but typically they're not, right? So either one, they haven't got credentials ready for us to test. The system might not be ready. Maybe they don't have a test system to test. So a lot of times the people who buy the engagement aren't the people necessarily putting together the test environment, and they don't communicate well enough to get those systems ready and on time for us.
Yeah, so a lot of that is their ability to communicate better internally to make sure that everything is lined up, which is, if they have that expectation of a quick start date and they're not prepared, that's a huge hiccup and a huge stall for us, right?
That's right. It will throw off the engagement right from the start, which will just delay it in the end. So yeah, you're correct. The internal communication, I think, is the key piece for a client to understand whether or not they've got all their pieces in a row, or ducks in a row, or whatever in a row.
Yeah, something in a row. And what's always interesting is that our clients usually feel bad because they realize oops, we should have covered that. So that's why that piece of information is so valuable. When you start testing, when your team starts testing, what can the client expect from us?
So typically the client should expect from us to be ready to go, have an assigned tester or testers, and basically the project on our side should be ready to go with these people ready to be focused on their engagements and only their engagements. Yeah. So the delays typically kind of throw that off.
So as we're going through the delivery process of the penetration test, obviously there's things that we're going to do for the client, like communicate really, really well. We want to make sure that we're communicating start time and stop time. We want to make sure that we understand, are there times that we can test? What else can they expect during the actual testing process?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Most of the key things that they can expect are clear communications on when we're testing, right? And where we're testing from. Basically, we want to be able to be traceable by them if they have the means to do it. Following that, the client can expect us to be working diligently during those hours that they've assigned, and we may communicate back to them that we may need more time. Right, we come to the end of the day and we've got a scan running or something, and we just need a couple more hours. We may communicate back to them saying, "Hey, we need a couple more hours to let this wrap up and finish, and then we'll be off your systems for the day.
Yeah, or maybe we need more information because we discovered something that would help us with our testing.
Typically, yes. There might be parts of an application that we don't understand what the key, whether it's even in scope. It might pop out to a different URL or something. And typically those will be communicated with hopefully someone technical on the client side.
So I kind of want to knock on wood with this statement because, it's kind of like, okay, it hasn't happened, knock on wood. One of the things that people want to make sure is, are we going to knock down their system, right? And we always make a statement that that's never our intent. And I say knock on wood because in 12 years, it hasn't happened. But that's sometimes a concern, right?
Oh, definitely. We're always worried about impacting production systems and impacting the client in any way. So we take a lot of precautions to try and avoid that. We try and do applications and test systems. We try and do specific times for doing any kind of scanning. We also rule out any kind of denial of service attacks unless they're specifically called out for, and then we will schedule those in appropriate times.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to all of this, right? Is that we want to make sure that we're doing this and we're communicating well, and that we're doing it during an appropriate time, and that we know all these things. Let's just say that we go through, we've done our testing. We're wrapping this up in a bow and we're giving them a deliverable. What can they expect from us as far as a report goes, and tying this up and being done?
Right. So in the end, you'll get a clear deliverable, right? It'll have basically an executive summary, so you can kind of have a brief understanding of what we did and when we did it and what the findings were. And then we'll have very detailed findings on specifics with specific call-outs and how to remediate. Typically, we will also offer a deliverable call so that we can go over the deliverable with the client on a phone call and go through the items and answer any questions that they have at that time.
Something that I just thought about is, we get a question from people like, hey, when you give me a report, is this just a report that you pulled off of an automated scan? Because there are companies out there that do that, right? That they charge for a pen test, they charge all this money, and then what they do is they give them an automated report. How are we different in that area?
Well, typically, we will use automated tools, right? So in a lot of cases, we're not any different, right? But in the main case that we're different is we will use different tools to verify. So if one tool tells us this thing's going on, we're going to try and find another tool or even a manual method to verify that that's actually going on. Also, we're going to give better reproduction steps based on how you can actually find the system or find the issue yourself later on.
Yeah, and often it is that whatever you want to call it, man and machine. So it's like we got automation, but we've also got manual expertise, and we use those two in connection or in collaboration for the testing. So when they receive a report, they know that there's a lot of thought and a lot of depth that goes into that.
Right. And a lot of systems, they'll come out fairly clean. They'll have some pretty small findings, right? And in that case, what we want to do is we want to show our value. And that basically how we do that is by having a very strong methodology section that shows basically all the things that we tried to do. We tried to do various automated testing and came up with nothing. We tried doing some manual tests around, whatever the case may be, and all of those things came up negative, and so that's how you got your clean report. You didn't just get a clean report because we pushed a button and nothing came up.
Yeah, and that's always the thing is like, we want to make sure that we have methodology that shows the pathway that we took to do the testing. Now, once the report is done, we work with them to help them understand what our findings are, and sometimes even give them a chance to say, well, the reason why we think this isn't a high vulnerability is because of this. What happens after a report is delivered?
Yeah, and that depends on, again, why you're having the pen test. If it's a specific type of compliance, there may be a call out by the compliance body to call for retesting after remediation. In that case, we usually do the retesting, and then we'll give you an amended report showing whether or not those items have been fixed. A lot of compliance bodies want to see basically a clean report. Therefore, they're asking you to fix those items in a reasonable amount of time, and then we'll go back and retest those. For best practice, a lot of times we'll go back and get a call from a client quite a few months off, and they'll say, hey, I went back to this finding and I didn't quite understand it, and I want to know whether I've got the issue now. So a lot of times we'll work with them on how to find that issue and whether or not that issue still persists in their systems.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you talk about remediation and then you talk about the letters or the finding. That's one of the things that we're committed to doing, is helping you, once you remediate a finding, to do the retesting on that specific item, right? To find out, did you fix it?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the goal of a penetration test, is to one, understand your risk, but also to reduce your risk by fixing those items later on.
Yeah, and letters of attestation, for whatever reason they are, either it's for compliance or for marketing, is something that we're asked more and more for, right? I mean, it seems like almost every single time clients are looking for a letter that says, we tested, caliber tested, we tested in this time frame, this is what we tested, maybe this is how we tested, and then with our line of, to the best of our ability, or because what we never want to do is guarantee that they will never ever get hacked. But what we want to do is we want to be able to relay to them that their security is at a point where that if they continue to do best practices, they should continue to see a level of security.
Yeah, and I'm going to double down on that, I guess, and say that even with compliance and best practices in line, a lot of the customers, our clients' customers, are asking them for assurance, right? And it's not just tell me that you've had a pen test. It's give me an assurance letter from a third party that says you've done the pen test.
Yeah. One of the things that I would say to you as the CEO and the founder of Caliber Security Partners is that we absolutely positively want you to have the best possible experience that you can have. And that means that we're really going to listen, we're really going to work with you, and we're really going to go about trying to build a partnership with you. So not only do you have a level of confidence in us in what we're doing this time, but most of our clients we've had for years and years and years, and we want to continue to build that level of confidence in us as we start to work together.